My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California.
It is currently 9:49 a.m. on Monday, March 17, 2025. This is documentation of the sex offense committed by the entity engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. And the sex offense is of an incestuous nature, while the third party, who is a relative of mine, this is Tracy Banks. She is a sex offender, and she is literally engaging in the sex offense of federal group stalking and monitoring while she is gang stalking me in concert with the people of the state. And she is engaging in the literal sex offense of molestation via light that is impossible to naturally occur. So this is a demon-possessed person who is gang stalking her own flesh and blood, and doing so with the mindset, the purpose to molest me, that is violate my person while she's crossing paths. So in other words, this demon-possessed gang stalker who was stalking inside of her own apartment, which is the prosecution of the third-party property management company, AVANATH Capital Management, who is gang stalking with all of its employees, as well as this demon-possessed gang stalker is walking in the living room and impossible light molests my body, and gang stalking with all the defendants residing in units 33 through 64 while she's walking through the living room, and impossible light molests my body. And she's not only walking, this demon-possessed gang stalker who's engaging in a sex offense in doing so is psychotic, and she paces in and out. She walks through the living room, opens the door, impossible light, and then walks back in as though this psychopath forgot something. This is a demon that's pacing. You didn't forget anything. It's impossible light that's coexisting, and you are directly aware of it. You see impossible light inside of her living room, all over her walls and her ceiling and the doors and in the kitchen. And I just took images. You can see engineered light piercing through her peephole of the front door. The sun is remaining, remember, over my head, rising and setting every day in Los Angeles, in Alvarado Gardens, where I documented the pattern of conduct. So this is the specific environment that is also inside of her apartment. And this is a sex offender, and this is somebody that actually hates me and is related to me, blood related to me. And that's also based on her criminal engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring, not based on the audible activity where a demon-possessed gang stalker is lying and outwardly conducting themselves, again, in both ways, because you're outwardly conducting yourself as though you are happy-go-lucky, enthusiastic even when gang stalking on her phone, and pacing about inside of the apartment amongst what is also impossible light activity under a fake sun that remains over your apartment all day long, and while you're engaging in what is a molestation of my person. So you're talking about what is a very surface level assessment of someone that is acting like they do not hate you, when their outward behavior is also demonstrating that they do hate you. They're gang stalking you. They're doing so in furtherance of committing murder and kidnapping you. You're also not ignorant of the fact that this is, again, the high school graduate that thought she was going to be successful in trying to have a power of attorney over me as a licensed attorney who was fully capable of prosecuting her myself in court, let alone disproving speaking to improving the illegality of all of that which she has engaged in against me secretly behind my back, not only now, but for a prolonged term for the duration of my life, in other words. And so now being an adult and knowing my rights, and she can't even spell Constitution, I'm pointing out all of the illegalities within what is a framework about the criminal conduct that the state of California is routinely practicing through high school graduates who practice witchcraft, who are life flunkies, who are career sex offenders, and crooks like Tracy Banks. And this is not just name calling. This is a sex offender who engaged in the satanic act of molesting my person with engineered light while she's pacing in and out of the door. This is a mental health patient who is going to a mental asylum. And she is also incriminating every other third party like Eric Corey Spencer, like those who she's talking to on the phone on her communication device, like all of her neighbors who are going to federal prison and mental asylums, like the third-party property management company, AVANATH Capital Management, like the government that gang stalks with her at the venue while she engages in that, which is a supernatural occurrence. It is as supernatural as the sun remaining over her apartment for 8 hours in the day. The entity is keeping the fake sun at 9:47 a.m., which has nothing to do with the engineered light that would be shooting horizontally through her door at the moment that she's opening it. And that is also evident while the fake sun is remaining over me in Los Angeles, California, requiring more than one sun. And no sun in Los Angeles over Alvarado Gardens is creating any sunlight through your apartment. And I've also shown how the images demonstrate during the 9 o'clock hour when the entity is gang stalking under a fake sun, which I document on video and images. Engineered light is flat on the living room floor, not shooting horizontally in order to touch and molest my body. And that's what's coexisting with regard to this demon that is always engaging in a sexually violent threat, monitoring my genitalia inside of the private space, engaging in what is gang stalking me with all of the state of California, including the neighborhood in Ontario and the entire apartment complex, who are all going to be prosecuted for this sex offense as well. This is in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. All 144 units are engaging in that sex offense together while they're gang stalking together. And it is a sex offense committed by a public entity that is operating the system of federal group stalking and monitoring. It is directly relevant to what is a method of psychological torture. The impossibility of it happening and the perplexity with regard to a gang stalking relative who is acting with impunity on a daily basis. This is speaking to her mental illness. This is the same demon where you can reference video online right now inside of her apartment, engineered light across her ceiling, across her living room floor, underneath a patio structure, illuminating her patio blinds, however, as though there's a spotlight coming from a laser-like conduct from the sun and magnifying my shadow inside of her apartment. Engineered light that pierces through her peephole onto the kitchen wall. Engineered light that moves across her ceiling and frames the front door. Engineered light that creates the enlarged shadow of my hands as I put my hand through it and capture it in images on the opposite side of her living room on her hallway closet door that moves all about. This is a demon that is pacing in this environment and opens the door, not in furtherance of going somewhere. This is a demon that opens the door in furtherance of monitoring me as she paces in and out to exit the venue where I remain subject to that pattern of conduct. And this is a sex offense that this psychopath derives pleasure from. This is the operation of Satan, who is using her vessel. She's going to a mental asylum for the rest of her life. And she is a violent sex offender that is gang stalking me with everyone that she knows and everyone that I know. Okay, I no longer communicate with these people, but the people of the state who are in my personal life are gang stalking me with Tracy Banks for as long as I've known them. So this is why, again, Tracy Banks is engaged in the P.O.C. and she's subject to a widely publicized, openly embarrassing federal prosecution. Okay, so the circus environment is inside of her apartment, and it's going to result in what is this is not just for laughsies and for funsies. She's going to be federally prosecuted. She's being prosecuted now. It's a process, and it's prosecuting the state of California, and she is going to a mental asylum. And a lot of other people who are gang stalking with her, what's happening in her apartment, at her apartment complex, are going to federal prison and are being prosecuted as an entity. And the Woodside Senior Apartment is being prosecuted as an apartment complex. So again, molestation via impossible light activity is the perpetual sex offense occurring at 9:47 a.m., where this sex offender license 9HUZ740 is gang stalking with the demons in units 33 through 64. And it is evidence, it is not sunlight from the sun, but it is evidence of stalking under the fake sun, because the demon possessed are maintaining an illusion that all the light that you see is the product of the sun. This is is how you have also what is impossible when you're recognizing the demonic environment, speaking to terrorism by the state, when you are being gang stalked and the unnatural environment is following you around. This is literally being stalked by the specific environment, and it has nothing to do with sunlight as being the product of the sun, but the engineered light is coexisting with the placement of the fake sun, and they are two distinct methods of recognizing the specific environment. So that's why when I show you through the crack, a crevice in the side of the window where the blinds are closed, you're not going to see the sun perfectly aimed through that crevice. You're looking at what is the evidence of being stalked with a fake sun, which is demonic. And you can also see the light that you see appearing on the inside of the apartment is not the product of even that fake sun. That's not the sun, obviously, because it's there 8 hours later when I'm at the same apartment complex. You also know that it's not sunlight because you can see, apart from the position of the fake sun, it's not creating sunlight on the ceiling at the same time. This is what I pointed out on video. It's not the cause of sunlight that's coming through horizontally in a different direction through the peephole in the morning. It is the same exact light that's framing the same exact front door in the morning when the fake sun is not on the west side of the same front door. It has nothing to do with the fake sun. Okay, so this is the entity that is gang stalking, and this is a sex offense committed by Tracy Banks, license 98UZ740. The surveillance cameras at the facilitating venue will show her crossing path, monitoring on surveillance cameras at Woodside Senior Apartments, where she's then getting in her vehicle. And this is a psychopath. This is an entity that's monitoring, aware of everything that I'm stating. So this is a sex offender that knows that she's being documented in real time while she is getting in her vehicle and going about wherever it is that she's going. While she's still being documented, she's still gang stalking the entire time. She remains a part of the entity. All right, so I want to be clear. This is the pattern of conduct that Eric Corey Spencer, her co-defendant, is fully engaged in and apprised of, and is fully facilitating. While as a gang stalking third party, he has committed criminal defamation, engaged in criminal summoning, and the acts of kidnapping. He is going to federal prison. He is engaged in what is criminally defaming in any of the gang stalking courts, and this is the system that he was acting in furtherance of with knowledge and with malice. When you are subject to the criminal pattern of conduct by the state, by the entity that is doing so to create the illusion that would be supporting defamatory speech in what is a defamatory and bearing false witness in gang stalking courthouses, where the entity seeks to falsely assert that you have some sort of mental illness. The simultaneous engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring, and the act of the defamatory acts conducted in these gang stalking courts equals federal prison for the people of the state, like Eric Spencer. He's going to federal prison. His mother is going to a mental asylum. Again, the entity is gang stalking, and I want to be clear, everyone that is gang stalking with Tracy Banks, including via her communication devices, are doing so intentionally and knowingly, and those defendants are identified throughout the body of evidence. They will also be prosecuted with regard to my documentation and how they are threatening and violating me and acting in pursuit of the state's pattern of conduct in furtherance of murder and kidnapping with knowledge and intent, and you are intentionally doing it when you are on the phone. It's not speaking to, I didn't know that the target individual was at home, and I didn't know that Erica Spencer was the target individual. I don't even know Erica Spencer. I didn't know she had a daughter. I thought that she was X, Y, and they can say whatever they want. They're being prosecuted. You're engaging in the elements of monitoring. And by the way, the demon possessed are an entire entity, and they know exactly what they're doing when they are on the phone, but they don't have to admit to knowing anything. They will be prosecuted in federal court, period. And her phone records are going to be a part of that prosecution. Moreover, this is directly relevant, and to whoever that this concerns, all of those that are engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring that have had involved in relationships with Tracy Banks, where she has utilized her relationship with you, sexual in nature, engaged in any marital affairs with you, especially those who were in my peer group, and then you engaged in any sexual activity with Tracy Banks. Any of those that engaged in any fraudulent marriages, who have claimed to have any fraudulent relationships with me, formerly being in my social circle, and are also having sexual activity, sexual relations with Tracy Banks. It is the absurdity. This is the exact same absurdity that I am referencing. And there are those, whoever this is for, that are engaging in some sort of illusion of some sort of pursuit. There is no flip-flopping. There is no making appropriate. There is no frame of normalcy where you can explain away the sexual relationship, the sexual aspect, any sort of relationship under any circumstances that you had with Tracy Banks. She is a gang stalker. She has been acting in furtherance of trying to murder me and also ruin my reputation. And you communicated with Tracy Banks with knowledge of that. There is no innocence with regard to any relationship that you had at any point in time with regard to her focusing on me. I am always the focus of any relationship that you maintain with Tracy Banks, and that is a fact. Anyone stating or claiming or feigning, especially to the feds, that you have any sort of ignorance regarding the nature of what Tracy Banks's purpose was, even as she accessed you, and she clearly accessed you, and you accessed each other outside of my knowledge and outside of my presence. And those that I never introduced, the only person that I introduced, for example, those who were feigning as being friends of mine, such as Shanita Ramaya McClain, a gang stalker who does have a knowledge of Tracy Banks, because I introduced them. Shanita Ramaya McClain has been a third party in my life since the 3rd grade. Okay, she's been an agent, a handler, if you will. She's been engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring for years and has made attempts on my life in doing so as well. The entity is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring with those that have relationships with Tracy Banks, who were in my social circle, and they kept that a secret from me on purpose, not because they were ignorant about the nature of Tracy Banks's purposes and intent against me. It's because they were fully engaged in that, and they were complicit to that. They are entirely nefarious in that regard, and there is no changing any sort of position that you have now. It is that you maintain at this point in time. Whoever this message is for, listen very clearly, because everyone else is listening to me prosecute, and part of that prosecution is making it abundantly clear who remains a threat to me and who will never be someone that I will ever associate with voluntarily. Anything that you have stolen from me by virtue of your relationship, sexual in nature, that makes it automatically perverted and satanic. Where you are engaging in that sort of conduct and you stole anything from me regarding to the misuse of my identity, any loss of property that I suffered because of your sexual relationship, of your marital relationship, or claiming any fraudulent relationships with me through your sexual relationship or personal relationship with Tracy Banks, all that you will be required to do is return everything that you stole from me. I will be enforcing my rights under federal law, under all the laws, to the fullest extent of the law. Excuse me, to the furthest extent of the law. I will be enforcing my rights. You are not turning into a friend because you're returning that which you initially stole from me when you were initially gang stalking me in furtherance of committing murder. You are not a friend somehow, and you will not become a friend, and there will never be any voluntary relationship between you and I. Where you are engaging in sexual activity, she is familiar with your genitalia. You are engaged in what is extensive sexual acts together. She is familiar with what it is that you are inclined to do in the bedroom. I'm getting this explicit because some perverts need to understand that there will never be a future between myself and them. Whether you no longer worship Satan or not, glory to God, if that's the case. He is capable of snatching the darkest heart out of the pit of hell, but that will not make you a friend of mine. You will never have anything to do with my personal relationship. And if you are in any way falsely misrepresenting fact regarding the nature of the relationship between you and I, which is non-existent, and the facts demonstrate that, there will never be anything that has any, there will never be any, relationship tethering us together. It will always be out of some sort of false narrative that is created in your mind and out of your mouth only. I am being abundantly clear in my documentation. All of those that were engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring and are still engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring while you're sitting around watching, still holding on to property that you have stolen from me, and still trying to manufacture some sort of relationship with me. It will never happen, and I am clearly speaking to that. There is nothing that I've ever forgotten. There is nothing that ever legally existed. There is no mental illness that ever existed, and while you shared in that false, libelous narrative, you will be prosecuted as well. You will not be retaining any benefits that you derive from me fraudulently and criminally in doing so, ever at any point in time. And while this sex offender is gang stalking me to date, you are acting in concert with that sex offender who was gang stalking me, i.e. you were gang stalking me. And gang stalking me through stealing from me, gang stalking me through having a sexual relationship with her and aiding in the pattern of conduct against me by having any sort of relationship with me. You're gang stalking me while you are acting in furtherance of Tracy Banks's ongoing so-called well thought out and intricate conspiracy. This is a high school graduate who was lazy and uses her sexual exploits to target everyone around me in my life. And you were fully engaged in and enjoying that sexual exploit. So don't just call Tracy Banks a whore. You are a whore with her. You were sitting around worshiping Satan in your sexual activity with her. You were engaged in that satanic sexual sex cult conduct with her. You were sitting around watching me on cameras, engaging in voyeurism with her. You were a part of that sexually perverted pattern of conduct. You are not different. Whoever this is for, you are not somehow converting into a friend of mine. You are part of the same entity, and you will never be a part of any social circle that I would voluntarily associate with. I will not be working with you. I will not have any personal relationship with any of you. You are being prosecuted and identified for that very purpose as well. It's abundantly clear in what it is that I'm speaking to and communicating and exposing, that you are not a friend of mine, nor were you in the past, and you will not become one in the future. There is no, and God is not leading that I'm going to wipe the slate of my memory, and then forgiveness includes you being a part of my personal life. You are delusional and you need mental health assistance. You are the one that needs to seek therapy. And I really mean that with the best intentions towards you. Forgive yourself and move on with your life. I suggest you stop serving Satan as you are witnessing the entity being prosecuted. It's not going to end well for you either. It's not going to end well. The entity is gang stalking with an ongoing perverted purpose of worshiping my genitalia. You engaged in sexual activity with this psychopath who was Tracy Banks, who was gang stalking where she lives the most pathetic existence. And then she keeps her head up and throughout the day as though she is anything normal or sane. She has multiple personalities. You were engaged in sexual activity with that sort of mind state. You blended, you fused with that person. I want to be clear. It is the most absurd suggestion out of the mouth of any false prophet, out of any covert tarot card reader calling themselves a prophet, out of any tarot card reader who gets their information from Satan himself, that you would have any sort of mindset that there will be any future with me. You are delusional. You're as delusional as these gang stalkers under the fake sun. They're all going to prison and mental asylums. And you are also a mental health patient thinking that you will have any future with me. You will not. Your future will be in federal court where I learn of any rights that I maintain against you, because I will be enforcing them. And this is just my delight in justice. It has nothing to do with anything personal. It is as unpersonal when you were gang stalking me and you had no regard for my life and my feelings when you were feigning to be a friend of mine in my life. There is no removing that. Forgiving it does not mean forgetting it. It will never happen. And you are exhibiting severe mental illness and thinking that that would be the case for any person that has any measure of self-respect and self-value. It is also akin and too close to incest. You are literally a nauseating force. The thought of you and sexual activity with a parental figure is as close to perverted and satanic as it gets. That is nothing that Christ Jesus is calling any person to do, by the way. And it is not a part of my testimony. It's not going to be a part of my future, and the feds need to understand that. The people of the state have been identified for a very specific reason, because they represent an ongoing, enduring threat. As delusional as any of the people of the state may be, they remain that threat, and I maintain a constitutional right to be protected from them. All right. And justice requires that what has been stolen from me through any criminal acts committed against me, because I've never been married to anyone. I've never bore any kids to anyone. I've never even gave anyone the dignity of being a serious relationship, romantically, I mean. So you're talking about the people of the state that have been engaged in sexual activity with Tracy Banks, who have been engaged in a marital relationship. I've heard one of these third parties are engaging in conduct such as going to the extent of marrying. Oh, that was somebody that was committed to the pattern of conduct. That's not someone who was a friend of mine. That is someone that is deep in witchcraft. That is someone that was committed to the pattern of conduct. That is someone that has no future with me either. And whoever this is for, understand that I am clearly communicating this because the world needs to know who you are and what you did as well. It is not only perverted, it is satanic, and it is also something that keeps you permanently out of my life. If there was any future, you forfeited that when you engaged in egregious sexual activity, and it's egregious because it's disgusting and nauseating to even fathom that your parental figure is having sex with people that are in your peer circle. But whatever your fetishes are, which are clearly demonic, I want to be clear, you have forfeited any future prospects with me. And that is years ago. This is old news. In the same way, I won the case against the state of California and all these sex offenders. I won it years ago. You're witnessing me give you example after example after example as to how the pattern of conduct is proven beyond a reasonable doubt against the state of California. And how justice requires things such as removing companies from existence and draining their pockets and putting their employees in federal prison as well, et cetera, et cetera. The entity that is engaged in this pattern of conduct against a sex offender that's stalking in her own apartment, engaging in sexual activity with everyone that she can fathom in order to execute what is some sort of high school graduates' grandiose plot that is signed off by the state that practices federal group stalking monitoring as a system. And this is what motivates and gives a high school graduate confidence that she can do something like steal the property of someone who is trained in the law. Okay, a formerly licensed attorney, someone who maintains that skill set and that expertise and can clearly prosecute upon knowledge of that facts, upon knowledge of those facts. And this is not rocket science, none of it. So you're talking about under no circumstances is there any intellectual capacity at all. There isn't. It lacks there. So you're talking about what requires public corruption. And that lacking of intellectual capacity, it is supplemented with what is absolutely disgusting sexual conduct that included sexual activity with those who I was associated with. Okay. Now, the enemy doesn't want me to speak the truth of this, and that's why you have what is my voice that's being challenged. And also at the same time, I want to be clear. The entity is bothered by the truth that I'm speaking regarding third parties like Jason Isaac Fields. Okay. Engaging in what is a pattern of sexually perverted conduct with a witch. And he is also a witch. I think they refer to that as a warlock. Engaging in sexual activity with Tracy Banks. If they engaged in any marital relationship, they did so while they were gang stalking me together. And these two unintelligent, witchcraft practicing thieves engaged in some sort of some sort of intricate plot where they thought that they were going to get away with my property, with my level of wealth. And they thought that they were going to get away with it by creating the illusion of targeting me with federal group stalking monitoring. And doing that would be in the corrupt courts of California who are fully engaged in the P.O.C. And that's why you have engineer light occurring across my ceiling at the same time that I'm speaking to the sexual activity and the low intelligent quotient of Tracy Banks and those who were in her social circle that are very welcoming of her sexual advances toward them. And that's why they engage in sexual activity together. Why am I going over this? Because the people of the state who are those that I have identified, and they do not become what is a lack of a threat or some sort of comrade or colleague or less of a threat to the target individual because they're returning that which they owe under the law, which is anything that was stolen while they were engaged in egregious sexual activity and sex rituals and acting out their sex addictions while they were doing things such as having sex on money, worshiping Satan. Okay, these are the egregious and disgusting things that they did together in the dark. And the demons don't want me to speak about that while impossible light activity sweeps across the ceiling of this defendant and all the demons inside of the apartment that know very much about the truth that I'm speaking while it's happening. And they're all going to prison and mental asylums for it. Okay, you saw this impossible light inside of Tracy Banks's apartment during the 11:04 a.m. video yesterday on March 16, 2025. Okay, and the sexual violence that is inherent to the pattern of conduct, this is what sex offenders like Tracy Banks and her sex partners, including Jason Isaac Fields, for example, whatever the extent of their sexual relationship, their personal relationship, it is directly relevant to what is the pattern of conduct that they targeted me with while they secretly linked up behind my back. And that's because, again, how is it behind my back? Because Jason Isaac Fields is not a part of Tracy Banks's social circle. They are not even a part of the same generation. Tracy Banks is an elder. All right. And she is akin to a pedophile engaging in what is happening. But I want to be clear. Jason Isaac Fields is not an innocent victim. This is somebody that is inclined to very promiscuous sexual activity, which I did not know about. And I was not a part of, by the way. But this is a third party that's engaging in this sort of sexual activity with my parental figure behind my back. That's speaking to how well practiced he is in engaging in what is a dubious acts against people outside of their knowledge for whatever benefit that he believes that he's going to derived from it. This is somebody that engaged in this sexual activity, which is entirely disgusting and nauseating. It's also very nefarious. And he engaged in these sexual exploits with my parental figure because he was convinced that he was going to derive a benefit from me in doing so. That is, target me while gang stalking. He's at the same time talking to me on the phone every day, like we're buddies, okay? Traveling in and out of California. That's crossing state lines while engaged in federal stalking and engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. And while also maintaining a secret sexual relationship with third parties like Tracy Banks, who was still gang stalking, while Impossible Light is traveling all throughout her living room right now. And you know why? Because Jason Isaac Fields, wherever it is that he is, and whoever else this message is for, engaging in sexual activity with regard to being recruited as a third party targeting me as a part of the social circle that was engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, where they first thought that they were going to get away with by license of the state of California, that engages in this targeting system where they plot to steal from you, falsely depict your character by creating an illusion of mental illness, i.e. by gang stalking you. Those in the position similar to Jason Isaac Fields, who engaged in years of sexual activity with my parental figure, his familiarity with her genitalia is his permanent removal from my social circle. Okay, his permanent disqualification from having any future prospects with me. That is as close to incest, by the way. He's in the same position as my father and my stepdad, who have had sex with Tracy Banks, and I'm also not sexually involved with any of them. And it is absurd with regard to the sexual exploits that third parties who are perverted, like both Tracy Banks and Jason Isaac Fields, and Jason Isaac Fields in particular, and anybody in a similar situation, gang stalking me, relevant, and it becomes legally relevant with regard to the facts relevant in this case, those who are sexually involved with Tracy Banks engaged in the pattern of conduct. Not those who are engaged in sexual exploits with her that I know nothing about. Whatever it is that this third party does, she has multiple personalities. She has a whole life that I know nothing about, including having sex with those who are in my social circle. Okay, so the entity that is having sex with Tracy Banks that are outside of my social circle, that's just a part of what would be a sex addiction, which is providing ongoing relevance regarding the ways in which she engaged in and recruited third parties in my life. Okay, and were they engaged in being recruited by having sex with my parental figure? That does not make an innocent victim. That's somebody that made a decision to join fused genitalias with Tracy Banks, who they know is a parental figure of mine. And they also were aware of the ongoing plot by this high school graduate that is engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring to date. I want to be clear, she is not acting by herself, and it's impossible that she can engage in federal group stalking and monitoring and accomplish things as ridiculous as things such as a power of attorney over somebody like myself, a licensed attorney, and even absent paying fees. It does not remove my legal skill set and my ability to point out the absurdity of the laws that a high school graduate is able to abuse with the aid of the corrupt state of California, who was gang stalking to date with this high school graduate. Okay, doing so while this is outright public corruption, and you're looking at the Jezebel spirit in operation over a whole group of people who were targeting me in furtherance of committing murder and thought that they were going to get away with robbing me through the calculated system of federal group stalking and monitoring. Not a robbery that where you derive an immediate result by using a weapon in order to take someone's property. They engaged in robbery via federal group stalking and monitoring and having sex rituals with Tracy Banks. And these are third parties who are highly perverted, like Jason Isaac Fields. This is no future partner of mine. This is no future friend of mine. This is no future property owner, or he's not going from thief and sex partner with my parent to sharing in any property that belongs solely to me. And I demand everything that was taken from me, including through this mentally deluded, sexually perverted third party like Jason Isaac Fields, and those similarly situated to Jason Isaac Fields, because they all know the role that they played while they were targeting me with this high school graduate. Okay, who was over 60 years old, gang stalking with the rest of these elders who are going to federal prison and mental asylums. 10:19 a.m., the demon in the mental health patient in unit number 55, pacing while engineer light is moving across Tracy Banks's living room wall and her ceiling while I'm speaking the truth of that which they're triggered by, the fact that Tracy Banks has had rampant sex with third parties that I formerly associated with, like Tracy Banks. And Jason Isaac Fields is somebody
somebody that would like to try to maintain some sort of reputation where he wants to keep intact. And I want to be clear that this is somebody who is overwhelmed and deluded by a false sense of some sort of ego, some sort of false idea regarding who he is as a person. This is somebody that was having sex with my parental figure, who I used to converse with him about regarding her peculiar activity, and he was at the same time having sex with her, and plotting against me, gang stalking me. This is somebody that is no hero. This is somebody that has no integrity. This is somebody that is entirely dishonest and is as crooked as Tracy Banks. Now, this is just the reality. While it's coming out of my mouth and this person is trying to publicly maintain a reputation and demeanor as somebody that is to a certain extent ignorant about what he was participating in with full knowledge at the time. Somebody that was fully aware of and engaging in sexual activity with this elderly woman at the time that is also my parental figure. That's how desperate third parties like Jason Isaac Fields are. That's how disgusting and nauseating third parties like Jason Isaac Fields are when they are secretly worshiping Satan in exchange for material gain. That's who they actually are. That's why they were having sex with my parental figure. And that's why they were recruited in such sexually perverted manners. And they were fully engaged and knowingly engaged in federal group stalking monitoring, which you know you're not ignorantly participating in, facilitating, or engaging in any capacity. Don't forget that. While I'm speaking that truth, Engineer Light is sweeping all across Tracy Banks' ceiling, which you also know that I'm not lying about. And Engineer Light is moving all across her living room wall, while the mental health patient in Unit 55 is amplified in volume, pacing like a psychopath who's triggered by the truth that I'm speaking, and is pacing right above me on the couch where this stalker knows exactly where I'm located. And doing the same thing when they're all as an entity monitoring my genitalia and also worshiping that. Okay, perverts like Jason Isaac Fields focusing on my genitalia, which they were inclined to be watching on secret cameras while having sex rituals with perverts like Tracy Banks. He's a pervert as well. This is no hero. This is no partner. This is no future partner of mine. This person is entirely removed from my life. This is why he has been documented. This is somebody who is delusional and who was trying to maintain some upright reputation before the public. This is exactly what this psychopath Tracy Banks and all the people of the state are doing, and it's an utter, outright, abysmal fail. There is nothing that you are going to maintain about your reputation. I'm prosecuting you and I'm exposing you for that very purpose. Because the people of the state throughout this country are going to learn what you did not learn in time. What you should have never participated in the first place. And because you're embarrassed about it, because you never should have did it in the first place. You wouldn't be ashamed of what you did in the dark if it was something that you knew wasn't right in the first place. And you can't blame it on mental illness. You knew exactly what you were doing every time that you were having sex with each other. And you were having sex with regard to a purpose in harming me. Because you thought I cared about what you do with your genitalia with my parental figure. That's you. You're the one that has to go to sleep with that image every night. Whatever you do with those images, that's you. I do not care. But I do care about your sexual exploits that are in furtherance of federal group stalking and monitoring, targeting, recruiting third parties, lying to courts and lying to those that are and engaging in the pattern of conduct, in other words, with those that are in the corrupt courts, gang stalking. That's what I do care about. And the sexual activity of these witches and warlocks is directly relevant to that. It's speaking to those that were in relation together. And just like she's gang stalking by those who are on her communication device, she's gang stalking with those and she is in reference to Tracy Banks, those who are in my social circle, gang stalking me with Shanita Ramaya McLean, somebody that was acting like she was a friend of mine, gang stalking with Glenn Williams, somebody that was acting like he was a romantic interest, gang stalking with Anthony Jawan Kennedy, a third party that was acting like they were a romantic interest, gang stalking with Kenneth Anderson, somebody that was acting like they were a romantic interest at one point in time. These are all people that never were serious in nature with regard to the relationship in my life. I mean, romantically. Okay, so these are you're talking about who are male friends, who are, to whatever extent they were sexually involved with Tracy Banks as well. And that is to the exclusion, but not really, because I don't know the sexual exploits of Shanita Ramaya McLean. And it may well include participating in these sex rituals where they were worshiping Satan together. This is the demon possessed who engage in gang stalking. They also are inclined to having sex rituals with one another. These are the mentally ill who have genitalias that they are using on each other.
other while they are targeting another person. Very, very sick. Satan makes you a sex offender. Satan makes you sexually perverted. Satan makes you psychotic with regard to the use of your genitalia. And that's just speaking to what they engaged in secret with one another while they were all targeting me in doing so, thinking that they were going to exercise some spiritual power over me because they engage in what is forms of betrayal, and that was going to garner them some sort of spiritual authority. It is all in their minds. I'm prosecuting every single last one of them by name. They are third-party gang stalkers, and they are, by the way, I know your name. That equals federal prison. That is the threat that they pose while they're gang stalking you in the most threatening manner, being right in your face, being involved in your life, being in your home, threatening you, gang stalking you. It is the state that is gang stalking you by the police, engaging in what is being in your presence and being in the circumstances of your life while they are the entity itself that has no, the state government has no warrant or probable cause to be involved in the personal relations of your life regarding on your listening to your phone calls, because that's the entity that you're talking to on the phone, that you're telling your details to. And I'm not in some interrogation, and I'm not voluntarily giving this information to the state while it's keeping me under surveillance via the people of the state. All right, so the entity is doing so, again, in real time. It is 10:28 a.m. where the entity is keeping engineer light fanning through. While I'm speaking all of this very damning and audible activity that they're monitoring to, engineer light is fanning all through this defendant's apartment. So pay attention to the audible activity that I'm creating right now while I'm speaking the truth about those who are permanently expelled from my life, who have stolen property that belongs to me, and they will be required under the law to return it to me, and that alone. The authorities will return it to me, and every documented state actor who are the people of the state that I know by name will remain apart from me. There will be no reunification. You remain a threat to me. You are also a nauseating source with regard to your sexual activity with a parental figure of mine, which is entirely disgusting and beyond weird. Regardless of whether you have repented or not, that's not my concern. My concern is that you stay away from me. Return what you stole from me. And the matter is going to be, the record is going to be corrected with regard to what was never any sort of relationship, marital or otherwise, between you and I. You were gang stalking, you were having sex with the parental figure of mine, and that was your means whereby you thought that you were going to profit from targeting me. Using your genitalia. You take that up with Jesus with all of your issues and your memories of having sex with this elderly woman, and you thought that you were going to be enriched by it, okay? I just want to be clear, that's some intricate means of prostitution. Sex for profit. That's what the entity engaged in. And there are third parties that are in a position like Jason Isaac Fields, similar to Jason Isaac Fields, anyone engaging in sexual activity with Tracy Banks in my social circle, doing so while targeting me. And they were targeting me because they were feigning as though they were friends of mine or romantic interests of mine, while I'm subject to the pattern of conduct by the state of California. And also doing so while they were sexually involved with Tracy Banks, thinking that they were going to derive some sort of benefit spiritually and monetarily. The entity is doing so with knowledge and malice, not ignorantly and innocently at all. And these are only the entity that wants to maintain some sort of upright posture with regard to their reputation. And it is impossible while you targeted me. I will speak out as to who you are and the secrets that you do not want to be spoken about, and the reality about what is the absolute refusal on my part, and what is absolutely absurd with regard to any suggestion out of the mouth of anyone who is not speaking on behalf of Christ Jesus, by the way. You're also not speaking with regard to my right under the Constitution to never have anything to do with you, because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're going to return what you stole from me, and you're going to remain apart from me. You are not able to target anymore. This demon Tracy Banks, she's going to a mental asylum. Eric Corey Spencer's going to federal prison. This entity, this entire neighborhood's going to be federally prosecuted. And I'm going on with what was stolen from me. All of it's going to be returned to me, and you are going to remain expelled out of my life. And that's actually what's going to happen. All right, it is currently 10:31 a.m. The threat that the people of the state pose is illustrated while the entity is still gang stalking me. That's speaking to the high level threat that the people of the state whose name you know, who are in your social circle, that's illustrative of the threat that they pose to your life while they are targeting you, while having access to you, calling you on the phone and coming to your house and hanging out with you in public, while that sort of malice is exhibited. Somebody that's acting in furtherance of murdering, stealing from you, and kidnapping you with the state, and while also being in your face at the same time as though they are your friend or or your romantic interest. That is the entity that will never have anything to do with me ever again. I'm going to enforce my rights to the furthest extent of the law. They are going to be forced to hand over that which they stole from me, and they will never have anything to do with me. Unless it is talking about you're being arrested by the feds because you are refusing to respect my rights and stay away from me, but you're not even going to know where I'm at. Anyway, it's currently 10:32 a.m. The entity maintaining the specific environment throughout this discussion, it's been 42 minutes and 55 seconds. The entity having engineer light swiping across Tracy Banks' ceiling. While I'm speaking to, again, the demons are reacting and are triggered by the truth that I speak. And the entity is also having engineer light swiping across the living room wall. So that's engineer light that is, again, flat across the ceiling and then horizontal across the living room wall. Also, while the demon in unit number 55 is pacing about, that's all of the entity is listening to what I'm stating and engaging. They do the same thing when I speak to the demon-possessed gang stalking police officers who are going to federal prison. They do the same thing when I reference the people of the state that by residence and by license plate number, when I point out what they're doing, when I point out companies and employees like RGS who are gang stalking on the property. Linda Reyes is going to federal prison. While I'm documenting this and I'm subject to this environment, she is going to federal prison. She was going to federal prison with regard to yesterday. She's going to federal prison, and she's going to federal prison even longer while I'm documenting, and I'm subject to psychological torture. AVANATH Capital Management is being civilly and criminally prosecuted for the ongoing psychological torture and criminal interference with my quiet enjoyment while it is targeting me as an occupant inside of its own property. That is the apartment building. This is an unprecedented violation of American citizens. It's a sex offense committed by commercial actors. It is domestic terrorism committed by commercial actors as well, who are criminally facilitating the pattern of conduct. That's why impossible light activity is inside of the apartment where Tracy Banks resides. That's why gang stalkers are residing at the venue of Woodside Senior Apartments. That's why the supernatural is occurring with regard to the enduring fake sun over all of the defendants who are stalking at 10:33 a.m. with amplified audible activity. The demons specifically in units number 49 through 64 are the ones creating earthquake-like booming. While I'm speaking in real time, they're all going to federal prison and mental asylums, every single last one of them, through units 33 through 64. The same ones who are stalking amongst amplified noise, criminally interfering. AVANATH is going to pay the bill for that. AVANATH is going to be criminally prosecuted for it, and all the gang stalkers in all of these units are going to prison and mental asylums for it. This is speaking directly to their mental illness. The amplified audible activity, as I narrated in real time, is going toward their federal prosecution when they're standing in court, and the federal judges are going to reference their outward demonstration of mental illness while the amplified audible activity is underway, while the ongoing engineer light is swiping across inside of this apartment, and the federal government is listening to me based on the credibility and the ability that I've shown to prove the impossible actually happening, meaning I don't have to make it up. And I also don't have to make up any other additional federal charges. Everybody's already going to federal prison and mental asylums. So I've already shown also that I don't get off like the demon possessed do on just making up stuff for funsies and having sex with people, because I'm actually a pervert, and I'm also looking to profit from my perversion. And then when it's exposed, then they want to try to make other narratives about what they were doing and what their purposes were. And there is no other narrative. So let me just go ahead and point that reality out. The reality is that there is no other narrative. This is an unfathomable violation by both my government and those that are related to me, and those that are acting in concert with those who are not related to me, including all of the defendants in units 33 through 64 who are going to prison. They're all going to prison, and there also is no other narrative regarding what they're doing. They're all going to prison for it, and they're all going to be mentally assessed with regard to the mandatory mental examinations. Those that are going to mental asylums, automatically, they're not going to prison. They're going to mental asylums like the demon in unit 55. They're all engaging in what is standing on a stage, stalking together under a fake sun, which you saw them doing on video at 10:22 in the morning. As though the federal government is looking at them and does not know what they're doing. Only mental health patients engage in that behavior. They're clearly not operating in reality. They are a national security threat because they're engaging in it in furtherance of committing murder. And they're also simultaneously exercising a deluded mindset where no one knows what they're doing. Everyone knows and sees clearly what they are doing and how they do it and what they know while they do it, because the government also knows that they are monitoring on the internet. Hence, the amplified audible activity was simultaneity to pointing out the defendants in units 33 through 64. They're going to federal prison and mental asylums. Hence, the impossible light activity inside of this defendant's apartment while I'm speaking to her sex partners who were also in my social circle, who will never have anything to do with me in my life
on any voluntary basis. They're not even going to be turning over the property that they currently unlawfully maintain exercise control over or derived any benefits from. The authorities are going to hand it over to me because the people that say that I've identified remain a threat. And there is no desire to have any relation with them at all. Any sort of information that they think that they maintain, you're going to be forced to divulge it. You're not holding on to any secret treasure. There's a whole federal case that is going on. You are not relevant whatsoever. You are not needed. Clearly, the prosecution of the state went on while you were rolling around like barn animals in Tracy Banks' bed between her legs. You are not necessary to the prosecution of the state. And with regard to any evidence that I maintain, let me be very clear. I will enforce my rights against you, any and whoever you are, whoever this applies to the furthest extent of the law, I will prosecute you. It is currently 10:37 a.m. The entity stalking with amplified noise. Linda Reyes and all the employees of AVANATH are going to federal prison. All right. In addition to the defendants unit and units 1 through 144, they're all being prosecuted for gang stalking. They're all losing their housing. All right. And they're also losing the right to the privilege because it's not a constitutional right. They're enjoying currently the ability for the government to aid in paying your rent. Sex offenders and stalkers, gang stalkers who are terrorists will never enjoy that privilege again. They're all losing. The entire venue is losing that privilege, and they will be prosecuted for stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. They will be prosecuted for gang stalking, which is domestic terrorism and psychological torture. They will also be prosecuted with regard to prison and what is mental asylums based on the impunity and malice with which the entity continuously engages in gang stalking by residents. And by you're looking at them gang stalking, they're not just living there and seeking to try to remove themselves as much as they can while still living in their apartment, which is again not innocent. It's speaking to a threat that an American citizen has a right to not be subject to. However, you're witnessing them affirmatively engage in the pattern of conduct. That's why they're going to prison and they're not getting out. That's why they're going to mental asylums and they're not getting out. And that's why the damages that AVANATH Capital Management will be prosecuted for in civil court are inherently designed to devastate and drain the pockets of that third party. Okay, and this is all because the entity that is being exposed for the sexual exploits of the sex offenders who are gang stalking, this includes judges, this includes politicians, this includes celebrities, this includes those who are practicing witchcraft that you are not ignorant about. They don't speak about that under the fake sun. They don't speak about that. They just like to enjoy the benefits as though they've worked for them. They worked for it on their back. They worked for it while being whores and essentially prostitutes. Okay, having sex in service to Satan in order to derive benefits. And they thought that they were going to accomplish creating the illusion of mental illness while targeting me with federal group stalking and monitoring and having sex rituals at the same time. This is how their sexual perversion is combining with the pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring. And who the sexual exploits of Tracy Banks and those in my social circle is speaking to, again, co-defendants. That's how it becomes relevant. They're perverted acts together, which were, again, unbeknownst to me. This is speaking to, again, the entity that is maliciously targeting me as well. That's exactly how that is relevant. And it's also relevant while I'm narrating in real time, impossible light sweeping inside of this defendant's apartment, inside of all of the co-defendants' apartment building. They're all going to prison and mental asylums. Amplified booming, again, I want to be clear. It's occurring while I am speaking to the fact that they're going to prison, they're going to mental asylums, and the feds have already watched the fake sun rise and set over you. They know exactly who you are and what you do. And they know the gang stalking government that you do it with. Every aspect, let me repeat it again, everyone under the fake sun is going to prison. It is currently 10:40 a.m. This is added relevant context regarding the sex offender that's pacing in and out of the apartment at 9:47 a.m. This is speaking to the threat that all of her sex partners who were in my social circle posed to my life and the malice that they exhibited while being in my life and targeting me, engaged in the same exact system. All right, in furtherance of murder and kidnapping and theft of property, which they will be forced to hand over and they will be permanently expelled in my life. It's not a point of re-entry into my life. All right, it is currently 10:41 a.m. at Woodside Senior Apartments where the fake sun is remaining. And on March 17, 2024, the entity was keeping the fake sun over me in Los Angeles, which has nothing to do with the engineer light that's inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. But nonetheless, the setting where all these demons are going to federal prison and mental asylums for gang stalking, it's remaining over me on the same day on March 17, 2024 in Los Angeles, California. This is P.O.C.